Just go ahead.
Yeah. I was hoping.
I knew you'd do that.
I was going to do you the honors, Kylie. Come on, it's your territory.
Well, come on. Who says? This is Channels Television. Everyone knows that we're everywhere. So, an ubiquitous organization. What do you expect?
I don't know what's going on with Aya this morning, but good morning. A wonderful morning to you. Welcome to Sunrise Daily this morning. I'm Maupe Oguyuso.
Well, isn't it good to have a Lagosian back in Lagos? Amaya Bakide, good morning and welcome to the show. Well, I think we're generally staying in Lagos today, right?
Indeed we are, and it's one of my favorite spots. Holds very fond memories for those who went to this iconic school. Well, I'm sure they will certainly enjoy the sights and sounds this morning. We cannot be bothered if other people did not go to a school in the city. It's not our fault, but I hope you enjoy the skyline this morning. It's coming to you all the way from Akoka in Lagos, and I'm sure anyone who has passed by Lagos, particularly if you have taken the third mainland bridge, at some point along the third mainland bridge where you're looking over the water, you certainly will see this iconic building. And for students who have gone to that school, they know that that is the Unilag Senate building. Well, you're not seeing it just yet. What you're seeing right now is this ball. I don't know what this ball is. This is the water. Yeah, this is the water tank. But you can see right there in the distance that very lovely cream building adorned with strips of brown, and in the distance right behind it is the third mainland bridge, which is what I was referring to. But right at the very center of the school, just when you've driven down from the beginning of the road leading into the school, you certainly cannot miss the very beautiful, iconic Senate building built in 1962 for the University of Lagos. Ayo.
Well, for those of you who know, sometime last week we brought you the Unilag gate, of course, with views around the entrance and all of that. But I mean, you said sometime in 1960s. That's a long time to have been built.
It did. And look at it. It still stands today. An architectural masterpiece.
And there's some who would refer to it as, this was the Western Union. That was the Western, when the Western Nigeria at the time. It was the colonial masters that built it. All of that is irrelevant. There are so many colonial infrastructure that have gone under. This one is still standing tall. And with the number of people whose destinies have been determined in this building,
Indeed. So I was very fortunate. Not only did I happen to attend Unilag, I also cut my teeth in broadcasting within this very building. So you can imagine, it actually holds on the 7th floor in the Senate building, because that was what housed the new Unilag radio, which was where I actually started my career as a broadcast journalist. So here we are, many years down the line, I'm looking at the building on TV and talking about it.
Well, in case you're wondering, so who came up with the idea of bringing up Unilag's skyline to you this morning? Now you know.
It happened by chance. It was supposed to be something else. It happened by chance, and I said, let's go there. Why not?
Oh, absolutely. So, if you are wondering, you can go ahead and do some checks about the University of Lagos, and there's so many other interesting angles to this illustrious, iconic, and historical institution in the Federal Republic of Nigeria. It's still within Nigeria, and by the way, it's in Lagos. And just so you know, Lagos is a former capital of Nigeria. I've tried, Abby. Okay. So now we move on to something else, Malcolm.
Indeed. Well, this morning we're going to jump right into the conversation, and we have the privilege to have in our studios in Abuja the Minister of Health. He is the coordinating Minister of Health in our Abuja studios. Just one moment now. And Honorable Minister, I ought to have been in Abuja with you, but for circumstances beyond our control this morning, I'm having to talk to you from Lagos. I'm hoping that we can make this conversation as seamless as possible. But Dr. Ali Pate, it is, and Professor, as a matter of fact, Absolutely. Ali Pate, thank you so much for joining us from our studios in Abuja this morning. It's good to have you with us.
Thank you for having me.
Well, before we go on in the conversation, Mark, there's some kind of a background you need to see so you understand where we're coming from and where we're going in this conversation.
2024 ushered in a huge increase in the prices of medication and pharmaceutical products. And one of the first tasks on the health minister, Professor Ali Pate's plate, was a meeting with pharmacists and pharmaceutical companies where he promised to sign an executive order which would help the situation.
Oh wow, has the situation improved? Well, if the reference point is cost of medication, one can say it has not really improved significantly. And the reason for that is not far-fetched. One, the executive order promised had come in terms of what we have on paper. And that executive order details certain things that should really bring relief to the industry. For instance, 0% import duty, not only on machineries, not only on raw materials, but even on finished product for a period of time.
From January up until the end of September, there were almost 11,000 suspected cases of cholera in all 36 states in the country and 359 deaths. Lassa fever was an ongoing concern throughout the year, with 191 deaths from over 9,500 cases, most of them from endemic areas like Bauchi, Ondo, Taraba, Ebonyi, and Enugu states. On the bright side, Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, donated 846,000 doses of R21 malaria vaccines in the first instance to the federal government as an adjunct to other proven methods of reducing the malaria burden. Also, as part of efforts to mitigate the spread of Mpox, which the World Health Organization had declared a public health emergency of international concern, the United States Agency for International Development, USAID, donated the first batch of 10,000 Mpox Jynneos vaccines to Nigeria. Nigeria also became the first country worldwide to introduce a groundbreaking WHO-approved 5-in-1 meningitis vaccine, MEN5CV, with the potential to reduce the case fatality from the current 50%. According to the Minister of Health, more Nigerians enrolled in the National Health Insurance Program over the past 1 year than any single year since the program began.
We've seen more than 10 million Nigerians receive critical services in these primary health care centers over the last 1 year. We've seen increase in essential care. We've also seen increase in skilled birth attendance. We've seen more than 2.4 million Nigerians have now been covered by health insurance, bringing Nigerians
or a reduction in our environmental practices. In the local government administrations, back in time, and I'm sure you probably remember it as well, we had very active environmental officers who went around to ensure that they prevent a breakdown of health, a breakdown of diseases, epidemics, endemics, whatever it is, in many of the localities. But it would seem that these days we hardly hear of those things. That is why for so long we've been talking about Lassa fever, and we're still struggling to take down Lassa fever simply because we are not able to take care of the rats that cause Lassa fever all through the years. So how is that collaboration happening when the Ministry of the Environment at the various levels of government in the country are not able to deal with the environmental issues that cause this national health disasters?
This is a very complicated question, and I will, first of all, on Lassa fever, I will say that on 15th of January this week, we're hosting a regional conversation on the Lassa fever vaccine development, and Nigeria is leading in the West African sub-region, a consortium of countries doing studies and with a view towards introducing a Lassa fever vaccine over time to solve this issue. And we can invite you to come and listen into this interesting conversation that we're having. But on the issue of the different actors that need to play, health is a very interesting construct, because the health of a population, there is what government does, but there's also what individuals and households and communities do that influence their health or not. So if there is a measles outbreak in a local government somewhere in this country, because population did not immunize their children, whose responsibility is it primarily? Is it that of local government that didn't have the primary healthcare system? Or is it the states that have not enabled it? Or is it the federal government? But if you don't deal with it, it can move from one local government to another local government and threaten that local government. So there are externalities. That is why all actors need to come together. But in fiscal federalism, the states and local governments have their degree of autonomy. So what we are doing is constructing an arrangement whereby we've got an incentive mechanism and advocating and really showing the path, providing the data, setting the direction, trying to hold all of us accountable. That's why we have performance dialogue. That's why we had a joint annual review, the various scorecards for each state, so that state governors and local can look at it and say, look, okay, how am I performing relative to my peer? There are some states that are performing at a third of what their peers are performing. So that's an incentive for them to do more, because the public can ask questions. So instead of asking the Minister of Health, you can ask the state government, what are you doing on primary health care, or the local governments? But on the positive note, I will say that we met with the local governments through the Association of Local Governments of Nigeria. They're very keen, they're very willing to engage in this vision of the president to transform health sector. And with this autonomy, they are really eager to contribute their own part to the degree that they have these resources available to them. And I know that the state governments have done so well in terms of shoring up, complementing with the federal government to ensure that the progress that we're making, we do it all together, and we will continue in that direction. So instead of dividing into pieces, what we're building is really coherence and collaboration and cooperation between different levels of government. And that is the way to improve population health outcomes for Nigeria. Then there are other determinants outside the health system. You mentioned environment. That's important. I am very fortunate that my previous colleague, the Honorable Minister of State for Health, became the Minister of Education. Education has an important role in maternal mortality, in immunization, because uneducated mothers have the bulk of zero-dose children and the children that are not immunized. And the human resources requires a good educational system. But my new colleague, the Minister of State for Health, came from Minister of Environment, who, and then that connection with the Ministry of Environment and my colleague, the Minister of Environment as well, is there, so that we work collaboratively. Ministry of Women's Affairs has an important role in health. Minister of Water Resources, in terms of cholera, much of what we did, and I saw in your report that Nigeria faced a cholera outbreak, but a cross-sectoral group was assembled by the president to see how we deal with it, because water, sanitation, and hygiene is as important in dealing with it. And of course, even defense and security. In some areas of our country, insecurity limits the ability of vaccinators to immunize children. But the defense and the military and the security services can play an important role. So it's a cross-sectoral effort, not just a narrow biomedical one that is needed to improve population health outcomes. Because at the end of the day, it's the person. We're not building a health system just for itself. We're building a system that will serve the people. And to improve their health and well-being, they need nutrition, they need water, they need housing, they need sanitation, they need women to be empowered to take their children, and they need the services, whether it's reproductive health, whether it's immunization, and when there are complications, they need to afford to go to higher levels, and when they have the unfortunate circumstances of things like cancers, they need to have higher level services, the tertiary hospitals that are equipped to be able to diagnose them and to treat them. That is the vision that we have in the health sector that I think is in line with the President's renewed hope agenda that we are driving towards.
And I guess it's very much in line with the title that you carry, which is larger than just health, and the fact that you are coordinating minister, and I guess that it's all encompassing. You're not just looking at health, you're also looking at social welfare. I was just going to ask you, before you elaborated a bit more, to speak on the social welfare component of the ministry which you're currently heading. How are you able to measure if you're actually having an impact on overall welfare of Nigerians?
I think it would be presumptuous to think that one sector or one institution can have direct responsibility or impact in the overall welfare. The entire business of government is geared towards improving the welfare of Nigerians, whether the federal government, states and local government. In the federal government, there are many institutions that play an important part in the overall welfare of Nigeria, whether it's the aged, whether it's the young, whether it's the service chiefs or the police or other services, whether it's the agriculture. There are many facets of it. The way we look at it, health is a component of social protection, because lack of access to health can undermine a family to move more into poverty. If someone is not able to go to market, go to their workplace because they are ill, or go to trade, open their shop, and they eat day to day, they can be tipped into poverty because of ill health. So all these investments that can protect a population from ill health are in a way protecting them from dipping further into poverty. When we provide the Vulnerable Groups Fund with resources to the basic healthcare provision mechanism that is with us, we are also ensuring financial protection when folks experience illnesses, when they face catastrophic health expenditures, to provide support for them. We're now advocating for more to be done, and in fact calling that we should do more through NHIA to set up a catastrophic health insurance fund for those who can be tipped into poverty because of major health expense. That's social protection. When we protect against outbreaks and respond to them, we know, we saw it, how Ebola did it, we saw how COVID, health conditions can interrupt economies and lead to serious economic damage, as we saw with COVID. Almost 5% of global GDP dipped down, and many countries are still struggling to recover from the impact of that health. It is a virus that caused a major global shutdown that we had never seen. So how do we protect that? And that's why we have a pillar on health security. So we see the social welfare as a set of interconnected interventions that have to be delivered, and that health is a core part of that, core part of Nigeria's effort to provide social protection. But there are other elements, whether it's insurance, labor market, that also have to come into being to improve the welfare of Nigerians. And we'll do our part and expect that others will also do our part. Then the overall objective of government on the welfare of the people can be enhanced. That is what we're trying to do.
Honourable Minister, one will acknowledge the investments that have been made in recent times. I mean, you've spoken about the cancer centers, and I have had the opportunity to speak with the one of the, will I say, is it the executive directors of the cancer center in Maiduguri, and also at the university there, the University of Maiduguri. They are very proud of what they have established in Maiduguri, especially with the cancer care, and it all comes complete with 24-hour electricity, which has also been thought about. So it is comprehensive indeed. However, personnel continues to be a challenge. Overall experience of Nigerians when they go to the hospital, as you and I, as we are all having this conversation in our studios, Nigerians, some Nigerians will certainly be at government hospitals this morning, hoping to access health care. For those who are at federal government-owned institutions, how are you hoping to improve their overall experience? Because for a number of people, it's not because they don't want to go to healthcare centers. They dread the idea of having to go there because they know the hassle it's going to take for them to be able to, get services. How are you working to improve the experience of the everyday Nigerian who has to use a government hospital, particularly federal government-owned institutions?
So the health system is integrated. So the defragmentation we're trying to do, if the basic conditions are attended to at lower levels, at the primary care and secondary care, The more complicated cases can go to the specialized centers, the teaching hospital, tertiary institutions. They can be attended. If you go to many of our federal tertiary hospitals, you'll find cases that ought to have been dealt with at lower levels, but have filtered up and added to the burden of care. If you're a consultant physician, there are some basic things like treatment of simple malaria that shouldn't occupy you. You should deal with the more complicated cases, eye-treating infectious diseases. So if you have a basic pneumonia, if I treat that case, it's just misallocation of time and resource, because I should be treating more complicated pneumonias that have not been well treated, and they have, or the diagnosis has not been well. So that's the idea of having the functionality of the lower levels of the healthcare service, so that the more complicated cases get to the federal facilities, while we're expanding the federal facilities and the capabilities of the health workers and their working conditions. I have to tell you, we're just in day 11 of the new year, and I had the privilege again of briefing His Excellency Mr. President this year on the health sector, and touched on important issues affecting the well-being of the Nigerian health workers. And I know that he cares about it very deeply. After all, he's the African Union champion for health, human resources, and community health delivery. So we are working very hard to look at what other ways we further enhance the experience of the Nigerian healthcare workers, because they are very committed individuals across all levels. We're working sometimes in difficult circumstances in our federal facilities, but also outside them, so that we collectively try to improve the experience of Nigerians when they interface with the healthcare system. We are not there fully yet, and it takes time, but we're on that journey, and we're committed to seeing it through.
This challenge which you mentioned, the fact that, diseases that ought to have been treated at primary or even secondary healthcare levels always, people present them at tertiary institutions, has been there for a very long time. And I remember, I think it was the former governor of Lagos, Babatunde Fashola, who always highlighted that, the primary health care centers had to work as a result of that. But I don't think that would have stopped people, from taking common cold or even malaria to, tertiary institutions, tertiary health institutions. Knowing that has been a challenge, and it is something that is burdening the tertiary healthcare institutions, has there been something in place, a plan in place to maybe differentiate what it is that people are presenting? Is there a way to do that? I'm just curious. I've just been wondering if there's a way to actually say, how serious is your condition? Maybe you should go to this healthcare institution instead of coming to, say, Luth, that's the Lagos State Teaching Hospital, for instance. I'm just wondering, has any thought been given to separating what is really serious, what tertiary institutions should be dealing with, from what, secondary or primary institutions should be dealing with? A reference letter, for instance, used to be a way, a referral letter, as they say. But it does appear that is no longer the case, is it?
So I think we've been discussing largely on the public side. Mind you, there are important service providers also on the private sector side who provide a significant portion of the healthcare services the Nigerians need, whether in the front end, routine care, or specialized services through the private sector. And we need to also keep an eye on that, so that Nigerians are able to afford them, but the quality, and they're able to regulate them so they do no harm, but also enabled to thrive, and there are providers committed. But in the private sector, like most countries, we have a mixed healthcare system. In our own side, when it comes to public resources, what we're trying to do is to improve the allocative efficiency. It is allocatively inefficient if complicated cases are crowded by very basic cases at teaching hospitals. So getting the primary healthcare system to function, what I mentioned earlier in this conversation about the foundational nature of primary healthcare, is not to diminish it. It's so foundational because if it functions and people know they can go to their neighborhoods and get seen within an hour and they're in and out and have their malaria, their cold, go through their antenatal care, and if they're pregnant women who are going to have delivery, they go to a CMONC facility and they know they can be cared they wouldn't go to the tertiary hospitals. So you leave the tertiary hospitals for the sophisticated cases, whether oncological cases, immunological cases, cardiological cases, surgical cases that are very complicated, that needed expertise that is concentrated. And the training of the healthcare workers takes place in those places with support for the lower level. That is the idea of the integrated health system. That's the idea of the national health system. That is the idea of the Health Sector Renewal Investment Initiative and the compact that we signed, which brings the federal government, state and local governments. And the referral system is implied, so that there's a referral system that can be activated. But when that is not fully in place, inevitably people will bypass the front line and they want to see the big doctor. And they all crowd in and they wait hours in teaching hospitals to be treated for malaria. And that should not be the case ideally. But we're moving in that direction. In addition, there are other public health interventions that we are rolling out which can prevent even the disease. So when you see a severe malaria in an urban center, for instance, there's been a failure before then because some of these are preventable. If they use children bed nets in their households, they clear water, early symptoms of fever, they go and get tested and they get treated with the right medication, then it shouldn't be complicated. But when you wait until it's late, then you get the complications. Same thing with diabetes or hypertension. If folks are screened early and they are treated, then they wouldn't have the complications of end-stage kidney disease because it's too late. So those preventative elements, the health promotion and wellness element is also important. That is why our objective in the health sector under this president is to save lives, to reduce physical and financial pain, to produce health, and to do it for all Nigerians. That production of health is to ensure that we prevent diseases that can be prevented. And some of it is us to advocate, it's you in the media, but some also is behooves civil society, traditional leaders, religious leaders, and households to be responsible also for the health and well-being of their own families.
Well, I think
what they do also.
Yeah. My apologies, Prof. I think the job of ensuring that we produce health is part of the reason why social welfare is also part of your responsibility, as Mopo asked you earlier. But allow me to draw your attention to something that is very important, but is rarely talked about. I'm looking at some numbers now that says that according to the National Blood Service Commission, the federal agency in charge of blood supply and all, Nigeria gets about 27% of its annual blood need from voluntary blood donors. That means we have a shortfall of about 73% plus of blood need every year. 60% of blood needs are consumed by maternal health and all of that. And about 20 to 25% of those numbers is what we usually get. Is there a plan around that? We are supposed to be getting some 1.8 million units of blood per annum. We're barely getting up to 30% of that. How have we managed over the years, Prof? I'm sure this is a concern for you because blood cannot be manufactured.
Yes, absolutely. And in fact, that is one of the focus that we have in 2025. We used 2024 to reposition the Blood Service Commission into an agency with a new leadership, and we were fortunate that a very distinguished Nigerian who is at Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville agreed to serve as the chair of the National Blood Service Agency. We're very privileged to have someone like Professor Abba Zubairu, who agreed to serve as the chair and the Director General of that institution, because he is well renowned in that field, to reposition the Blood Service Commission. And in 2025, the President put out a proposal to help strengthen the blood system, because yes, it's not satisfactory that we have that level. The culture of voluntary blood donation is not really well established. And even the blood donation centers, patients, women tend to depend on relatives, and others when there is acute need of blood, it's not readily available. We need to increase that, and that's a focus of the Blood Service Agency with Professor Yuguda, who is there at the moment. But the safety of the blood system also, to ensure that the blood that is transfused is tested, well tested, with tests that can pick out infectious diseases that we don't want them to be transmitted to those who are being transfused. And there are other lines in the blood transfusion system, for instance, the white cells, platelets, and others for those who are oncological patients who are being treated for cancers. They require multiple blood infusions and also blood components. But for maternal mortality in particular, blood transfusion is important, but there are interventions that we are now gradually rolling out, which was tested and is very innovative. It's a postpartum hemorrhage drip, which a woman will be laid on, and when she's delivering, as she bleeds, the calibration of the drip will show the health worker how many mils of blood, so that it's more accurate than just the subjective opinion of the frontline of the worker that is delivering this woman. And at a critical threshold, they can intervene early before it's too late. And sometimes the interventions might include the stocking that will support her blood system, but also medications that are oxytocics that can be provided to stop the bleeding, and the referral if needed to manage the emergency complication and to ensure that she can afford it. That is the idea of the MAMI and the free treatment of obstetric complications that we've been announcing, we've been working on through the NHIA, so that we reduce the contribution of postpartum hemorrhage to maternal mortality. So there are many implications of lack of a functional blood system. And we are hoping, and we count on the National Assembly, that as the appropriation in 2025 is concluded, and based on the President's proposal, that they would support that appropriation so that we have a robust blood transfusion system across the 6 geopolitical zones, and to begin to undertake things like drone delivery. In some countries like Rwanda, the drones that are delivering blood when needed from a centralized area. So the logistics of getting the blood from where it's collected to where it's needed, when it's needed, is made easier, especially in remote areas or in insecure areas, so that we can save as many lives as we can.
Yeah, I'm particularly thrilled about the fact that at least there's a plan to increase the amount of blood.
Yes,
I hope you can hear me now. I'm particularly thrilled that, first of all, at least there is the plan to increase the blood supply before we can even talk about the ingenious idea of drone delivery and all of that. And you may also want to speak to why we have very low level of voluntary blood donation as opposed to the standard practice that the World Health Organization has been speaking about. But lastly from me, Prof, what are, and I know you've spoken about quite a number of things today, the challenges of funding are there, the infrastructural challenges are there, but what are your professional and maybe government health and social welfare goals for Nigeria for 2025? What are Nigerians to look out for from you and from your administration and your team?
First, the medical relief program, the Renewed Hope Medical Relief Program for Nigerians, to ensure that we do more in reducing the cost of pharmaceuticals, of consumables for Nigerians all over, the vulnerable Nigerians. And there is a proposal that the President announced as part of his 2025 budget, which, if appropriated, will provide relief to at least 10 million Nigerians directly in terms of cost of antihypertensive, to bring that relief more tangibly. Last year we did some, and we've tested that. It's not yet enough, and we need to do more. That's one concrete one. The second is to continue to expand the functionality of the primary healthcare system through BHCPF, through the sector-wide program, the Health Sector Renewal Investment Initiative, so that the health workers, the primary healthcare system will function alongside the state, local government, and everyone. Thirdly, the infrastructural upgrades of our facilities, the cancer centers. In May, my hope is that we'll open the first 3, and then the other 3 will come afterwards, and the other major infrastructural upgrades will be concluded, and that NHIA will double up the number of Nigerians who are able to have insurance coverage, so that Nigerians afford that. And that if there are emergencies, outbreaks, the health security pillar of our agenda also is addressed, so that we don't have outbreak getting out of hand. Like the surveillance we're doing now for the human metapneumoviruses is being proactive. Like what we did with cholera, we tamped it down. Like with meningitis, when the season comes, with Lassa fever, so that we begin to do better at controlling outbreaks before they spread to be epidemics or before they become into pandemics, to have a robust system. And that the value chain that we have put as an agenda, we expand that we have many of those investments, whether it's bed nets, whether it's diagnostics, whether it's generic pharmaceuticals, begin to be produced in more numbers here, and our local manufacturers also have that to thrive. So those are the key things that I'm looking at, and for the health workers in Nigeria, to ensure that we continue to live in harmony and have peace to serve Nigerians, and that there are no strikes, and that whatever issues that exist, we're able to preempt them with the view that Nigerians are first, and whatever else we can deal with and negotiate around it. If we can do those 8 things, I believe that we'll have a very successful 2025 in line with the expectations of the president, that we should deliver a country that is healthy, that also ultimately is on its path to prosperity.
You managed to say all of those things without promising a salary increase to the health workers, which is essentially what they're looking for, Honorable Minister. Is that something that is really in the offing for them? Is that something you can look forward to this 2025?
I think there have been various conversations on this, and I know that it's not just about one thing. There are facets, and I believe that the president is looking at some steps that he's going to take, and we'll see in the next few weeks to months what transpires. But all in all, health workers are intrinsically motivated to serve, and they are not serving primarily because of money. The money is important, and they need to have a decent wage, and there are also other enablements that we are working to provide, so that they continue to serve our population.
For a number of people who are in the insurance system, the number of them complain about the quality of medicine that they get, and sometimes the level of service. I mean, sometimes it would seem that those who are paying out of pocket get better attention and better service on time, and then sometimes the quality of drugs that are given to those on the how will I put now, the insurance system, and this happens across board. It's not exactly, I'm trying to use my words very carefully now, but it's not really top-notch medicine, and a number of people have complained. Do we have, an eye on the quality of medicines that are dispensed within the Nigerian healthcare system?
NAFDAC is a principal regulator, and if you look at their data, they're reporting, there's been a gradual reduction in substandard counterfeit medicines that are in this country. But part of the issue is at the borders, people can bypass some of those mechanisms, but those are being addressed. The other issue, which I think the executive order, which I think the earlier commentator at the very beginning of the program mentioned that yes, it's been done, it's been signed, it's been gazetted. The implementation framework, I think it's on the way, and Customs owns it, Ministry of Finance owns it, to ensure that we provide the relief for the good medicines to come in, good raw materials, equipment, and to have those incentives function, while at the same time keeping away those unregistered or counterfeit things. And within the country, for NAFDAC to do better in terms of surveillance of the distribution system, and the Pharmaceutical Council, we are working with them to strengthen the distribution through the outlets, because they're the regulators of that. Now, NHIA, as a purchaser, has a responsibility in terms of how it reimburses providers. And it did some steps in 2024. It increased the tariffs, in fact, twice. So that increase, it's at least an improvement from where they were before. May not be all that the providers may need, but it's also a function of the premium, because you cannot insure someone in abstract. If I insure you, somebody must have paid the premium. So who is paying the premium? If the public sector puts resources at NHIA, then NHIA can insure more people. If the employers put more people, or if individuals pay the premium for themselves, then they get insured. But you cannot just insure by prescription. I prescribe that you are insured. So as the NHIA gets more resources, then it can up and improve the purchasing function that it plays, and the rigor with which it sanctions if there are discrimination, let's say, against those who are being served through it. But there are many facets of this, and we see with our efforts to domestically manufacture and to improve the regulatory capacities that over time that Nigerians can be assured. For us, there's zero tolerance. We want to assure that there is safety and there's efficacy in the commodities that Nigerians are accessing in the healthcare system. There are bad actors that may choose to go across the border, and they are Nigerians. So if Nigerians know them, call them out, report them to the authorities, and so that we can deal with them.
Honorable Minister, I would like to thank you for your time with us this morning. We're totally out of time. Thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Daily. Professor Ali Pate is the Coordinating Minister for Health and Social Welfare. And just a little reminder from your friend in Ososa who's watching this program, reminding you of a promise you made to his community a year ago. Please, Honorable Minister, kindly reach out. Well, thank you so much for coming on Sunrise Daily this morning. Well, it's a little past the hour now, but I do know that Business Morning on Sunrise Daily is on standby. Please don't go anywhere.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. I'm in John Mekwan. It's good to have Malkwe in Lagos, even if it's just for a day. Now, let's start from the global space. Oil prices extended gains for a third session on Monday, with Brent rising above $81 a barrel. That's the highest in more than 4 months, as wider U.S. sanctions are expected to affect Russian crude exports to top buyers, China and India. Look at the numbers, $1.47. That's what Brent gained this morning. That brought it to $81.04 a barrel. That's 1.60%. While for WTI gained this morning, gained even more than that, more than 2%. And then later on, we saw a little bit of drop to 1.71%, and the price at $77.88 a barrel. And it's all because of what's going on between Russia and Ukraine, as Russian oil exports will be hurt severely because of the plans of the U.S. to implement that sanctions against Russia by the new sanction, pushing China and India, the world's top and third largest oil importers respectively, to source for more crude from the Middle East and Africa, and as well as the Americans. And this, of course, is already boosting shipping costs and prices, and that's what we see this morning, where unexpectedly price of crude has jumped by almost 2% in one session. Now we look at the Naira, where NAFEX depreciated, lost 36 kobo, and we see the only gaining platform here is the CBN rate. This is for Friday. CBN rate gained 0.03%. It's minimal. So it opened at 1,545 Naira, but closed at 1,544 Naira. But other platforms were in the negative. So 1,542 is what MFM closed with after it lost 0.19%, while NAFEX closed at 1,551 Naira 67 kobo after it shed 0.5%. We'll see what this week holds, but at least we can a little bit comforted by the fact that they're all within 1,500 range, and that, signals a bit of stability and certainty for investors to make plans. Now, the Central Bank of Nigeria's loans to banks surged to a historic high of 1.2 trillion naira in the first 7 days of this year. This indicates a liquidity squeeze in the sector. The 1.2 trillion naira CBN loan to banks represent the highest in 5 years and a 961.3% jump from 114.2 billion loan reported in the first 7 days of 2021. This is according to data from the Central Bank of Nigeria. Analysts attribute the rising demand for the loans, also known as the standing lending facility, to liquidity constraints, monetary policy tightening, economic challenges and regulatory pressures, but it also shows the extent of naira depreciation over the period. The naira has depreciated by over 74%, with the loans jumping more than 10 times over the period. On an annual basis, banks borrowed 1.2 trillion naira from the bank in the first week of this year, and that's rising by 700.9% from 151.3 billion in the first week of 2024. Now, the president of Africa Development Bank Group, Dr. Akinwumi Adesina, has revealed that the Africa Investment Forum, which was held between December 4 to 6, 2024, mobilized $7.6 billion of investment interest for Nigeria. The forum market days, which brought together key stakeholders under the theme Leveraging Innovative Partnerships for Scale, had active participation of state governors like Lagos State, Kaduna, Katsina, Kwara and Plateau, as well as Ogun State. And Dr. Adesina is promising to keep working to support and boost investments into Nigeria. Now, Ethiopia's stock market, the Ethiopian Securities Exchange has been officially launched and is ready to resume operations. In fact, the bell was wrong. I think that was on Friday. The group CEO of the Nigerian Exchange Group PLC, Mr. Temi Pepola, who was at the event, reiterates the transformative potential of Africa's capital market, and he emphasizes the need for stronger regional collaboration, government-private sector synergy, and innovative market solutions to unlock the continent's economic potential. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed lauds the launch of ESX, that's what it to be called, as a transformative milestone in the country's journey towards economic modernization, as the bell was officially wrong to launch the Ethiopian Securities Exchange. He calls on global investors to maximize what he calls immense potential. Meanwhile, the CEO of the Ethiopian Securities Exchange, Tilahun Esmail Kasahun, has expressed confidence in the partnership with the NGX Group, with the ESX poised to redefine Ethiopia's financial landscape. NGX Group's investment or involvement highlights the critical role of partnerships and shared expertise in advancing Africa's economic narrative. The chairman of the indigenous conglomerate Odua Investment Company, Mr. Bimbo Ashiru, has asked Nigerian investors and entrepreneurs to explore the vast economic opportunities in Liberia, highlighting the country's untapped potential across key sectors. He made this known at an event in Lagos, which focused on exploring investment opportunities within the West African countries. And it allows both domestic currency, that's the Liberian dollar, and the US dollar, as the legal tender. Otumba Ashiru mentioned that Nigeria is ready for investment with Liberia across key sectors of the economy, but highlights that security remains a major concern for investors.
The purpose of this meeting is for us to be able to have Nigerians who are willing to invest there to be able to identify the areas, gray areas, and at the same time their concerns to know, because we've seen people establishing industries in African countries and they lose all the things they have. So what we're trying to do is the primary objective of any investor is the protection of their investment, and that is what we are working on.
In the next 10-15 years, in terms of what's going to happen in Liberia, as we've seen, the hotels are popping up, we see the beaches, the resorts are being established, we see the people are traveling back and forth for trainings, for the educational sector is booming, our health sector is taking shape. The only most important thing that we can look at is that the number of international tourists for Liberia has increased in the last 3-4 years, and it's increased greatly in terms of last year. We intend to capitalize on that and make sure that 10 years from now, going down the line, we can equal the number of citizens in Liberia to the number of tourists that will get to Liberia, which is 5-6 million.
now, talking about how to make 2025 a richer year for the country. We look at Nigeria's endowment with 7 critical minerals that's needed for global energy transition. Yes, the world is discussing energy transition now. Nigeria has 7 minerals that can be used as raw materials, and these things are in commercial quantities. In spite of the nation's possession of 44 minerals in commercial quantities, analysts are lamenting that the solid mineral sector contribution to the gross domestic product remains minimal. Perhaps that would change with the rebasing of it. Now, we've heard that the Minister of Solid Minerals and Development, Mr. Devt, has done a whole lot of things. For instance, look at some of the steps that have been taken, at least in the last, since he's become minister. So the minister had declared a state of emergency in the sector. There's also, because we know that insecurity has been a major challenge for that sector. We know what has happened in Zamfara. The special security outfit called Mining Marshals has been established, and thankfully a 5-year ban in Zamfara state has just been lifted. So we'll find out how safe, because in spite of that, we see a lot of insecurity activities around the mining sites in the North Plateau, Niger State. They continue to experience that. Then there's the ultra-modern analysis laboratory in Niger State. And then there's the lithium processing laboratory in Nasarawa State. We know that the governor of Nasarawa State has been very vocal about this processing and all that. And they also increased rates and charges to make, the sector attractive for legal workers and miners in there. Now, let's head into this conversation now with someone who has a first-hand experience. We have Mr. Jegede Paul. He's the chairman of Japol Group of Companies right here in the studio. Mr. Paul, good morning. Happy New Year, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Happy New Year.
Great. So we've seen a number of efforts by the government. There's the declaration of the state of emergency. There's a security outfit. This is what's celebrating. We've been celebrating that, I think,
Zamfara,
in Zamfara.
Yeah.
And then the formalizing of artisans. I learned we now have a number of cooperatives, from this efforts.
Yeah.
And then value addition policy.
That's right.
And a whole lot more. As a player in the mining sector in Nigeria, how impactful have these steps been in reality?
Okay. Let's start from the state of emergency. Some of the policy have been very helpful in the industry, mining industry. Dr. Dele Alake has been, with his team, has been trying their best to see that the industry is sanitized. This state of emergency, at least, in sanitizing the industry, taking care of illegality, that is illegal miners, make sure idle licenses are terminated. So those are the emergencies. Then there are a whole lot of steps that have been taken. The special security outfit called Mining Marshal, although this is still passing through the legislative process, it's not as if it's in force now. But the team, they are working towards getting Mining Marshal, like mining police, to stop illegal mining. Although they've tried out all their effort. Last year, a lot of illegal miners are with EFCC now.
We learned about 300 illegal miners have been arrested.
They have been arrested. So I think it's going to get better with the Mining Marshal. Mining Marshal is not only going to be after illegal miners, only for enforcing the mining law. That's going to be part of their job. And then the 5-year ban lifted on Zamfara is a welcome development. But that is not to say that the insecurity is over there. There's a couple of insecurity. But opening up, lifting the ban, people rush there, gold rush. This is a very blessed state with gold and lithium and copper. So it's highly mineralized state. So you see a lot of people rushing there. At least if it's well organized and well managed by government, it will be a good source of revenues also for the state and the federal government. So that's another welcome development. So formalizing the activities of artisanal miner and illegal miner is also a good one, where people are grouped and are given some kind, you won't call it license, permits to just do what they are doing. And these artisanal miners, they use hammer, jigger, shovel, so they are just doing things on a very low scale, but it's been formalized. I mean, it's an attempt to remove illegality in mining. So value addition policy is a very good one. It's a very good one. So
what are some of those policies in practical? What do they change in the work?
You mean the value addition?
Yes.
The value addition policy is basically telling the miners that you don't have to take the raw material, mineral that you have mined out of Nigeria just like that. And then just this same experience we are having in oil, where we take our crude oil to out there, then we buy the same petrol and diesel to come and use in Nigeria. So value addition is saying don't take it a hard value to the minerals, so that one, there will be job for people to do, and through that we'll also be able to master the skill of adding addition to our mineral.
Has it been working?
Yes, at least to an extent. It's still young. It's still new policy. It's too early to assess the profit of the policy. But it's been happening. In Nasarawa, they started processing lithium. In some states, they started processing lead and zinc. So it's good. Yeah. And people are, now that the policy is in place, everybody is trying to work towards adding value to the mineral before they are all exported. So it's working, and it's going to work.
So from your perspective now, all of this and a whole lot more puts us in the right track when it comes to the mining sector in Nigeria.
Yes. We're on the right track, but we are just starting, because mining is a big business, and we just have to start somewhere. The policies are in place now, and if government continue to pursue the policy to see to its implementation, then there will be good outcome, both for the federal government and Nigerians who are miners. Yeah.
So for you as a private sector and other private sector, do you feel safe, getting into this? Because the whole essence, especially when you talk about that value addition policy, it's an important one. But even though I still hear there's a lot of illegal export of the raw materials, but do you feel safe putting your funds into this sector?
You mean the sector of adding value, or the
mining generally? Because it's when you add value, it's when you have funds. That's when you buy the equipment that you need to clean it up, to add value, before you can think of exporting.
Yeah, you feel safe on one hand where there is security, because security is the main issue. Mining is very capital intensive. It's not what you put 100 million, you think you have spent money. No, exploration alone can take 10 billion naira from you. But if you are doing exploration and trying to do mining, then some insecurity takes that away from you. That's a major issue. And then I think there is improvement in security. That's why investors like us can go into the field and say, yes, we want to invest in mining. So I think there's some sort of comfort for us. So we are moving ahead, we are investing in mining. Security issue is being worked on by the federal government, so we feel secure.
What about host communities? Because I know that used to also pose a challenge.
Yes, recently, even Dr. Dele Alake tried to work on the community development agreement, how it's going to be differently for what it used to be. So there are some guidelines, there are some rules, how to draft community development agreement. If it's well handled, then you will not have community problems. But there is no way you take community issues out of it. People will come with this different kind of agitation. We want this, we want that, we want this. And once you start, they see you working there, they think you are carrying out the mineral there, and it's become money immediately. But it doesn't work like that. You can even do exploration for 5 years, you have not taken a gram of mineral out of the place. So you need to keep talking to them, educate them, for them to know what you are doing. Then if you follow the guidelines that we have now, I don't think you have problem. Guidelines in drafting community development agreement. There won't be any problem in doing your job. So, I mean, yeah.
But I mean, yes, we talk about 300 illegal miners have been arrested, but some people say that the major illegal miners are those at the top, some people with loads of money, and they're still finding their ways. Some of them even connected to those in political powers. They're still finding their way to cut out, some of these resources without even adding value, and, through the back door, without both the government and the community gaining from it.
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that before you can obtain any license, you need to spend money. So if you say those people at the top there, they are the ones that can have such money to pay for license. Now, they now call on artisanal miners who use digger and all that to be doing the mining, pay them, then what they have mined, they collect, and then they export, find one way, especially gold, they export it. So they avoid paying royalty to governments. So government is also smart on that by putting all these artisanal mining together in groups and give them paper to work. You understand? So you can see that yes, some people that are loaded with cash are influencing illegality in mining. On the other hand, there are some people that they don't even need license. They just go to the field. Maybe a farmer just farming and see something unusual and take it to you and say, what is this? This is copper. Then before you know, you inform people in the village, they will bring all their shovel and then they start digging. So no license, nothing. Then, funny enough, you now see Chinese coming around to buy from them, encouraging them, giving them money to do more. That is what you see. And then by the time the other people in the other village are seeing that these people are making money, they also join them. You can see 3,000 women be working on a particular mine, digging and messing up the environment. That's how it is.
So it does sound like Mr. Lake has a lot of work to do.
Lot of work
because it's a huge landmass, and the communities, they are the ones who know better than a visitor on where to go to or what they are even doing.
That's right. That's right. So a lot of work has to be done, and education. They need to let them know how they can benefit without messing up the environment, how they can come for proper licensing and they get more benefit than doing illegality. So a lot of work has to be done. Yeah.
Then for you as a private sector, is there what's the word I want to use? Is there a clash between the state and the federal government? This issue of it's in the state, but it's the federal government that is controlling. You want to get a license, you pay to the state, and the state watch you, digging their ground, but it's the federal government that is getting the funds,
Not really. Government is getting the funds, but they're also giving them under derivative arrangement. Now, there's big issue in that area. The state government is saying, we are the chief security officer of the state. We need to provide the life and property of our people. And then the power to grant certificate of occupancy, CFO, is the power with the state. Now, mining itself is in the exclusive list of federal government. They are the one you pay to get license. They are the one that give you license. And you pay also royalty to federal government. So the federal government say, we have given them license, allow them to work. Then these governors are saying, no, mining is breeding terrorism, is fueling banditry attack. So we don't have choice, we have to stop mining. So you see many states now say, mining banned because of security issue. Dr. Dele Alake in many fora has talked to the governors and said, you guys must allow mining to continue. So that clash is still there. Some states are still under ban, lock and key of governors. You can't go there and mine. Despite the investment that a miner must have put in. So that alone is major discouragement to investors, even local or international, because it is not right to just lock mining. Or why don't you step up your effort to secure the life of the people in the state? Yes, you are the chief security officer, but there's a way you can handle it without stopping mining. So it still remains unresolved till today.
So I'm sure if you were asked what you think the government should do to actually boost mining activities, we're looking at the contribution of mining to the GDP, improving it. What else do you think can be done to attract more investment, lasting investment, and through the legal routes for the sector?
Well, what federal government should do is to work with the state government to secure life of the people, because they try, and I think there's improvement. We can see, we are also seeing it. If this insecurity is tamed, then there will be no need for state governors to be banning mining, because banning mining is robbing both state and federal government of revenue, of contributors to GDP. So government needs to do more in terms of security so that the life and property of people can be taken care of. Otherwise, why should people be dying because some people are mining? So that's just it.
All right, thank you so much, Chairman, Japol Group of Companies, Mr. Jegede. Thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, thank you.
So, well, I guess that's the much we can take on Business Morning. We head back to the Sunrise Daily Studio at 1 p.m. Business Incorporated will be here. Laddie Williams will be here with Aniti Ede to give you intraday numbers and 55 minutes of business. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Well, thank you so much for staying with us. This is Sunrise Daily on Channels Television. Let's look at the evolving dynamics of Nigeria's sports sector, highlighting both the challenges and opportunities inherent in its development, particularly for this year, 2024. Of course, you would expect that a significant focus will be on the recent appointment of a new coach hired for the Super Eagles, and a number of other things like that. Guest this morning is the Chairman, National Sports Commission, Shehu Diko. He joins us again in our Abuja studio. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure.
Well, maybe I should begin by asking you, sir, when you look at Nigeria's sports, of course, we know how viable it is, how much opportunities it gives us, and its capacity to unite Nigerians, particularly football. What are the gaps that you have seen over time? And how do you think those gaps can be addressed in a way that it gives Nigerians the intended, the desired, and the expected results in this year?
Well, as you know, the gap that is very obvious. The fact that for many years, for decades, we refuse to do the right things. We refuse to take the necessary steps to be able to make the sports to be very institutionalized, to run as it should be. We were only focused on just playing the games, playing the competition. Nobody was doing anything at the back end to make sure the necessary framework and the necessary possibilities are activated to make the sport highly successful. We have seen what is happening all over the globe. For example, so we left it a very, very long time ago. Now is the time we are trying now to be able to address all those deficits, go back to the basics, put out the platform to be able to achieve these objectives and make our sports to be not just sports being played, but to be something that is very key and fundamental part of the economy. If you look at it, for example, most people think about in those days with nostalgia, for example, as we talk about football, when we have in the 80s, in the 70s, the football, everything. But right from that time, we refused to do the right things because we are only playing the football. Nobody was putting any necessary structures and infrastructure to make it sustainable. Look at it, for example, Leventis United, for example, Abiola Base, for example, Ranchers Bees, ICC. What were the structures that were put in place to make them the institutions that they ought to have been? The same way we see the big clubs across Europe that will tell you they've been around for 100 years, for this, they have their stadium, they have their core fan base that are already locked down and stuff like that. So those are the things, and that is why now we said, okay, let's go back to the basics. Let's remove this so much focus on competitions and go back to the development and start putting all the steps needed to be able to now make our sports industry more developmental focus. Then later the competitions will come into play.
Well, it's perhaps those who know will recognize that it wasn't just about football back in time. I grew up in an environment, and I was in a school where somehow I picked up interest in cricket. And basketball was also very, very strong when I was growing up. And in the schools particularly, all of these various games and sporting activities were very, very prime. If you say that the gaps are there now, at what point did we drop the ball, so to speak? Now, you have said that we weren't doing the right things. What were these right things we stopped doing?
Well, for example, now you just talk about the school sports. You know, the school sports is the foundation of all sports development, where you get the talent, where you get the people to be interested, where you get everybody the participation to be widely accepted, and then from there you can see how you can move it. So those are the kind of the things we didn't do. We didn't institutionalize it. Where are the school sports now? That is why the focus of the new National Sports Commission now, if you have been following up, you see that fundamental. We said we have to go back to grassroots, to the development, which will be driven basically by school sports and the academies. And I can tell you already we have held meetings with the Minister of Education, with everybody involved to see how we can collaborate and get back to school sports where it should be. As I speak to you, even at this moment, I'm due to be immediately after this to be at a meeting with the provost and rectors of College of Education and Polytechnics as part of the first step. Next step is the vice chancellors and stuff like that. We are saying let's make the school sport to be the foundation of what we are doing. So what are we trying to do? We said we are going to create like centers of excellence. We want to have at least one tertiary institution across the 6 geopolitical zone that will be tagged a center of excellence for sports, so that we can work with that tertiary institution, put the infrastructures, put the necessary technical know-how, coaches and stuff like that. So any student at that level can be able to go to those universities while also advancing their sports career. Likewise, we want to work also with the Ministry of Education and the subnationals. We should have at least one secondary school in the state that also will be termed Center of Excellence for Sports. So any child at that age group that is good at sport can go to those schools and also continue whatever they have to do with sports, while we are also supporting with the infrastructure, with the technical know-how and stuff like that. Likewise, we cascade to the local governments as well, so that we'll have for each local government, there should be at least one primary school that is also termed as the school of center of excellence. So with that, we have created a pyramid structure whereby as young as 10, 12, 13 years old, somebody who's at primary school can be able to be identified, and then they can go through that process to go to the school of excellence for primary schools, secondary school, universities, and then to the elite level. That's the foundation, and then meanwhile also we try to work at the other hand to put the academies and stuff like that. Once you do that, it's very easy to bring in the private sector as well to be part of it, so that we can have a thorough ecosystem that is working. I can tell you the last Olympics in Paris, 38% of the medals were won by students. So we left it when we stopped. Even those days we are having players from secondary school playing for Super Eagles, but we are not tapping them. So that's the foundation we have to go and put on the basics and to see how we can get this going, in addition to the normal grassroots community sports and stuff like that. And then also we have to work on the elite level to make it very, very successful, to make it very, very working the right way, so that anybody can see a pathway. If I do it the right way, I can get to this level, up to the elite level where I can be successful. I can earn the right revenue, the right fame, and then and what have you.
Well, Chairman, a lot now rests on your shoulders, especially after the Ministry of Sports was scrapped and the National Sports Commission now empowered and brought back again. A lot now rests on your shoulders. We're looking at AFCON, and Nigerians will be looking to, make headway. The Olympics, where we have had far from stellar performance, Nigerians have not been showing pretty great in the Olympics. World Cup, people say, that's the place where our hearts, when we eventually qualify, some people are very afraid to watch the games because they say, I don't want my heart broken unnecessarily. So there is that, and so a lot really does rest on your shoulders. But I want to go back to what it is that you've said now, which is where you are trying to build the foundation. You think that is where we should start from. This is something that takes time. There are two things that are actually swirling in my head. I like the plan that you have to build the foundation, but we found that even when you are trying to build the foundation, there are those who are seeking to corrupt that foundation. So you have even primary school games. People are already beginning to go and get mercenaries. Secondary school games. Remember the Shell Cup, the cup that used to be sponsored by the international, the IOC, Shell, and for secondary school boys. Some people were saying, even that one too had mercenaries. Even the one that used to be played amongst the university games, a lot of mercenaries were said to have also infiltrated those games. So while you're trying to set this foundation right, are there mechanisms that you look to put in place so that that foundation is not corrupted?
Yeah, of course. You made a valid point, because that is why you see we said, for example, we based on what we had to do, what we are doing, the president gave us the mandate to work and create a sports economy, and we now said we are creating what we call, launching what we call the Renewed Hope Initiative for Nigerian sports economy, which is being now activated along 3 pillars, which is to reset, refocus, and then relaunch. What we mean by the reset is to change our mindset from this trying to all win by all means, and then also focus on the competitions and stuff like that. Go back to development. So when people understand that, look, it's about development, it's not about just winning. So all these issues of mercenaries and stuff like that, along that framework can be able to be reduced. Yes, of course, there has to be a lot of strategies on ground. That's why we are working now at the top with the Ministry of Education. We have to go back to the state education and stuff like that. Even while I was doing my previous job, for example, what we're doing under 13, we put a lot of mechanism, for example, that we ask that at that age group, if you are doing under 15, for example, nobody plays in that competition without a reference letter from your principal, your last results from school, and then which we can go and do spot checks to find out, to make sure that people are submitting the right thing. But once you change and reset the thing, people thinking that, look, this thing is about development, it's about progress. All this too much push to win and win by all means across, by all things to win, will stop. Because what we are doing now, for example, we have a budget line for grassroots development and early talent identification. That funding will help to drive that process. And then if now we identify you as a good talent at that level, we'll be able to support you with scholarship, we'll be able to even support your parents. So it's not about winning, it's about showing how good you are. So once you are good enough, you can be able to be in the loop where we can support you. So that will help to to reduce these issues. And then, of course, we are working on several legislation frameworks that will be able to reinforce and reinforce all this progress and all these programs that we have, so that everything will be done according to the books. And then there is clear guidelines, there is clear process to do that. In our vision, for example, we said part of what we are trying to do is also restructure the sport federations to make them more active, to make them more fit for purpose, to deliver what they are supposed to do as the people operating the sports. So with that, all stakeholders will be involved, and we are sure at the end of the day, the way we judge people is not about winning, it's about how many talents we are able to produce on the table. Even the grant we give to schools, for example, it's about how many good talents you have been produced through a school that can be able to compete at the highest level, that will be able to now work with you, give you the infrastructure, give you the support and what have you to do that. So it's not about just winning the medals and then you go back home and then what next? Zero. No, we are not going to do that. So we are going to encourage people to work and deliver talents to us so that we can support them with all that we have to do.
I do know that mindsets take a while to change, and while you might want to start that preaching very early, sports for a number of people ultimately is about winning, and that's the mindset you're going to get when you hear that, oh, we're participating in the African Cup of Nations, oh, we're participating in the Olympics. What people want to hear is how many medals Nigeria won. Did we come home with the African Cup? These are the kinds of things that they want to hear. It takes a long time to build from foundation to where exactly we want our sports to be. How are you going to preach that to Nigerians who every time games are played are looking for results?
Well, I can tell you we are not abandoning the competitions. We are doing everything pari passu. As we are doing the development, we are also we are not taking our eyes off the ball about the competitions that we have to be part of. If you look at the 2025 federal budget, for the first time, for example, the president have done something that have not been done before. We have a clear, we have a clear budget line that has been inserted in the budget for 2025 for Olympics preparations. We have a budget line that has been inserted for Commonwealth preparations. We have a budget line that has been inserted for grassroots development and early and talent identification. We also even have a budget line for participation at the AFCON. Normally, and also the AFCON, that is the women AFCON as well, because which are competitions that are going to happen this year. There is also, under the service-wide vote, a budget that has been put in place for international competition participation, should in case we qualify to a competition within the year, that is not captured in the budget. So we are not taking our eyes off the ball about the competitions, but before you participate in the competition, you have to do it rightly. We can't wait until, for example, 2028, and then go and gather people and go to the president and collect huge billions and say we are going to go and participate at the Olympics. We are not going to win anything. But you start preparation for the 2028 Olympics today. So now we have created this budget line. So every year there will be some funding that will be put in place in the budget to support the Olympic preparations, Commonwealth preparations, grassroots talent development and stuff like that. Before even what we are doing with the private sector will also come on board to support whatever government is doing. So from this year, we are already preparing for the next Olympics. We are trying to identify the people that can give us the medal by the next Olympics. And also, they too are going to be measured based on the performance they are doing. If you are not meeting some targets, you are not going to receive grants from us for what you are doing. Very soon, the Commission is going to impanel what we call Elite Development and Podium Committee. That committee basically is to be identifying the elite athletes, see what we can do with them, give them scholarship, the ones that are good enough, take them to the better training facilities abroad or put them in schools abroad where there is better training facilities towards the competitions and the Olympics. And likewise, we are interfacing because football is very key. We are always interfacing with the NFF to see whatever we could do to get the right preparations for the competitions. That's why as we speak already, for example, we have a CHAN competition happening next month, but already since on the 6th, the team are in camp preparing, because we are also taking the competition seriously, because part of the vision we have is that any competition we participate, we must be able to be credible about it. We must give our best for it, to see what we can do about it. But the target is not just to win and win and win at the same time. The target is to see how we have a proper sports development ecosystem domestically, where we can be counting our sports on the number of jobs we are creating, the kind of economic activities, the value chain industries that are working and feeding off the sports industry in the country. That is how they do it. Let me give you an example. A certain club.
Go ahead, please. Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, for example, I can tell you a certain club, for example, in UK, for example, that is in London. They don't declare more than 5 million or even negative in their own profit and loss accounts. But what they publish every year is that, look, we are employing 4,000 people, we are paid S number of taxes. This is the 1.something million people that have come to our stadium, our stories and stuff like that. This is the value addition to the economy. And that is how we should be viewing sports also in this country, to do that on those kind of numbers, not just on medals won and stuff like that. If we have a proper domestic sport industry that is employing millions of people as we forecast, and being at least 3% of the GDP as we forecast, that should be in the couple of years, then we are good to go. The rest, yes, you can win some, you can lose some in the competition. England have not won a competition in football since 1966. They have not won any top-level football since they won the World Cup in 1966. But they now manage to have the best and the most viral domestic football industry in the world, the most economic viable. And look, you can imagine the number of millions of people that are being employed through the Premier League in UK. Imagine if the UK doesn't have the Premier League, what the economy will be, what the perception of the country will be, what the happiness and the good and the feel-good factor of the country could be. So that is why we want to change the thinking, to reset the thinking, to be seeing our sport on that light before we now start saying, okay, we must win, we must win, we must win. Definitely only one person going to win at the end of the day.
Oh, you spoke about budget lines and how you want to start preparations early, and how you're not looking to collect lump sums when these events are already upon us, which is a good thing. Whether the budget lines will be funded, another kettle of fish. But something happened last year, an incident in Libya which involved Super Eagles, and everybody was very unhappy about it. We saw how even CAF eventually intervened and sanctions were meted out. But Libya, the team in Libya and the authorities in Libya claimed that, the sporting authorities that is, claimed that it was because they had also received that sort of treatment here in our country, and they referenced the shoddy manner of treatment and arrangements that were made. So how do we make sure that these sort of incidences, if Nigeria were to host friendly matches, those kinds of things don't pop up again?
Well, I can tell you the Libya issue, what they said about Nigeria was not actually factual. So that is a fact. They just created a story trying to justify what they did. We all know what happened. The NFF and the authorities in Nigeria gave them the best kind of treatment that they could do at the moment. The little gaps that happened at that time was their own creation. When they were supposed to land in Uyo, after all the approvals have been gotten, and they went to land in Port Harcourt, and they refused to use their flight to fly from Port Harcourt to Uyo. Instead, they said they want to come by vehicle. Anyway, all that one is fastest. Nigeria is one of the most beautiful hosts. Because you can hardly hire any country, any club that comes to Nigeria to play a tournament and they go back complaining. We always try to do our best. And of course, part of our vision is to see that we start hosting a lot of international competitions as much as we can, that can be able to put Nigeria on the map, on the positive platform. Reason we are having a clear focus to see how we can repair the critical infrastructures of sport in Nigeria to be able to do that. We have one of the best qualified people in Oganman. Remember, we have organized how many under 17 World Cup, under 20 World Cup, Commonwealth Games. We have all, African games that we are not Commonwealth that we have hosted in this country, and there was no any issue. So we have the experience, we have the personnel, and definitely it's going to be one of our focus. And we keep trying to make sure any host that comes to Nigeria, we put Nigeria in the most positive light so that they can, it's not for them to just come to Nigeria and play. It's for them to come to Nigeria and love it and go back and tell the story somewhere so that we can get more tourists, people to come for tourism, for visit, for whatever into the country. That's basically what Morocco is doing. That's why Morocco is hosting almost every available tournament. Morocco wants to host it. They are doing that to showcase their country, put it on the platform, and send the message so they can get many other marketing agents that will go back after the tournament to tell the world that Morocco is beautiful, Morocco is hospitable, Morocco is good. And so you can see the tourists are flocking to Morocco every day. So we also have that vision going forward. But first and foremost, we have to make sure we fix our infrastructures. Reason also, as you can see in the budget, we are working to see how we can fix the infrastructure, and then later we can concession a lot of them to get the private sector to run them.
Okay.
Because that's the standard across the world. Abuja Stadium, for example, we are working to fix it, and then we can turn it to be a sports city by inviting the corporate, the private sector to come on board, build the hotels, build the convention centers, build the shopping malls and stuff like that, even the housing estate, so to make it a proper sports city where it can run on itself, it can earn money to be able to maintain itself, and then it can host all kind of competition that is possible.
Mr. Chairman, let me quickly bring you, because we're talking football and you're also talking infrastructure, but let's focus a little more on football now. We've just appointed a new coach for the Super Eagles, and it's not exactly been very warmly welcomed. As a matter of fact, a number of fans have been criticizing the choice of this new coach. Can you tell us why? Because some people say, why are we going for this French League 2 veteran? And that's the strongest criticism against him. Was there a reason why we decided on the new coach, Eric Telle?
Well, you see, first and foremost, I tell you, it's normal. There was never a coach that has been appointed in Nigeria that people did not complain. There was never one that everybody said, it's good enough. So it's normal because Nigerians are very passionate about it, and Nigerians always have their own ideas. In football, for example, and sport generally, everybody is a coach, everybody has his own idea. But the validation of getting this coach is people have tried to take it off the radar for conversation. We have a workout qualifiers that are very dicey, that are very critical. We have 3 windows to play the qualifiers. There's no any window for friendly match. There's no any window to do any test match. And we are playing, for goodness sake, we are playing African countries. We are playing, I think, Zimbabwe, Rwanda, South Africa, Lesotho, and Benin. Those are core African countries. So the only person that can come at this moment, if you want to get somebody that can bring a fresh thinking to the team and lead the team, is somebody with the experience of African football. And this coach, for example, is not any League 2 veteran or whatever you can tell me. No, you should judge him with the work he has done with the national team. Forget about the club. Club football is different. National team is different. What is the foundation of the work he has done with the national team? What is the success rate? Eric was a coach of Mali, and when he coached Mali, he made Mali a very strong team that everybody was afraid to play. They even defeated Nigeria in a friendly match, defeated South Africa, I think, in a friendly match. And in total, he played 22 games with Mali, won 14, draw 5, and only, I think, lost 3. And that shows credibility for what he's doing with the national team. And of course, the work qualifiers we are having, we all have to outscore our opponents. Eric with Mali in those 22 matches, score over 40 goals, but I think he considered only about 12 goals. So he also, you can see the philosophy, he's also defending well, and he's scoring very well. He was able to outscore all his opponents. Even in the last AFCON, he lost by the miracle of the last minute goal by a mistake. So it's normal like that. But he came with that credibility, that the fact that he's going to give a new thinking to the team. And then Eric is not coming as Eric. He's coming with other 3 assistants who are going to be also supporting what he's doing. A set piece coach, a goalkeeper coach, and also I think an analyst or what have you. I don't know, the other one that he's bringing on board. So it's a team that are coming together to give us a fresh start, to give us a new thinking, to give us a new push.
Okay.
There's no any friendly matches. We are going straight to the matches. So it's only somebody with the experience of African football. If you go and bring a Mourinho now, for example, or even Alex Ferguson from retirement, before he comes and sit down and understand the African terrain, understand how to work with the players.
You just went straight to the question that I would have loved to ask you, but for the exigency of time, how come when we have Nigerian coaches, we don't seem to have the kind of success we need? Is it that whatever it is, that plays out? But maybe that question I'll have to keep until another time. Thank you so much for your time this morning. Shehu Diko is the Chairman, National Sports Commission. We appreciate your time today.
Thank you very much. It's my pleasure always to be here.
Okay. Well, you probably also, Mr. Chairman, have a good friend in some fellow who is saying that they know your work at the LMC and that you did well. Well, we're holding you to that. You better do well this time.
Indeed. I mean, they say you know a man by what he's done before, so it's certainly something to look forward to. Absolutely. In our sports sector. But what a Monday morning it's been, Ayo. I think time flew by pretty quickly. I haven't stood up from this chair, not even when Business Morning was on. It is really nice to be with you in Lagos.
Fortunately, you are back again. Anyway. Well, that's been a beautiful one. Thank you so much for the privilege of your time. I'm Ayo Makinde. Enjoy the rest of your day and week.
Professor Nakena, we see your mail. Hopefully we'll take that tomorrow. Thank you so much for writing in. Thank you so much for watching this morning. I'm Mal Goodbye.